Today I am going to teach you how to make the Mittleider method seed flat marker. This right here is a seed flat, and if you want to learn how to make it, go ahead and take a look at our other video. Sometimes when you're gardening, you've started them in your flats and then you'll transplant them into larger pots. But there's certain things that are smaller, like kohlrabi in my instance, where it would be better just to put a lot of them about every 2 inches apart in a flat. So that is what this seed flat marker is for, is to help you with positioning and just make sure that they all have the same amount of space. You can eyeball it, of course, but sometimes it's nice to be more precise. The things that you'll need to make this seed flat marker are a 1x2 that's cut 15 inches long and has a 45-degree angle at both ends. You'll also need a 2x2 that's been cut 10 inches long and a 45-degree angle at each end. That part's optional, but it does make the handle look a little bit more finished at the end. You'll also need 6 of the 2-inch screws and a screwdriver to put it together. You'll need an 18-inch by 18-inch, 3/4 of an inch plywood sheet. And this you'll take and mark every 2 inches down the one direction and the other direction, giving yourself a grid. And then you'll use a 1/2 inch drill bit to make your holes at each of those junctions. So that'll give you with 64 holes here. In addition, you'll need 64 2.5-inch dowels and a small PVC chunk that is cut 5/8 of an inch, and it's a 1/2 inch PVC pipe. When you drill the holes in your plywood, it's helpful to put another piece of plywood underneath it and clamp them together so that it doesn't break through too much. Even with doing that, you may get a little bit of the furring of the edges, which is not that big of a deal. For this next step, you'll want to go ahead and protect your work surface. I just put a little bit of butcher paper down. And then you'll take your dowel, coat it with the glue, just on that bottom edge. And insert it into your hole. Sometimes it will be a little bit tighter fit, and in those cases you might need to use a hammer. Emmeline said she talked to her dad, and he had done peppers with this method back in the 80s. Because this method has been around since like the 70s. And he evidently, the grocery store that was near them bought all of his peppers because he would sell his stuff at the farmer's market. But his peppers were ready sooner, and they were bigger and nicer than anyone else's. Now that my glue is mostly dry, I'm going to go ahead and sharpen it with a carpenter's pencil sharpener. Now you have to make sure that it is big enough for a 1/2 inch dowel to go in, and this is where your collar comes into play. Now my glue is mostly dry. If I had a little bit more daylight available today, I would go ahead and wait to do this until it was completely dry. Ideally, maybe wait until tomorrow, but I have plants that need to be transplanted. So what you do is you take your little PVC collar, place it over your dowel, and then you just sharpen down until you hit that PVC collar. This is nice because it keeps it from getting too pointy, and it keeps them all at roughly the same size. Oh, evidently my backing comes off of mine. All right. And then you move on to the next, and so on and so on and so on, times 64. You might be tempted to not use the PVC collar when you're doing your sharpening of the little pegs, but I highly recommend that you use it. There was one of them where I forgot to move it, and that one looks all wonky, and all the other ones are nice and uniform, so I think it's a good idea. Additionally, I think using a glove is a good idea. After I got to about peg 50, I started noticing I had some really sore spots on my finger, and so that made a big difference there. Now at this point, we need to make our handle, and to do that, you want to mark the center of your 10-inch board, and we'll go ahead and connect that to it. Do the same thing to the other side. Okay. And now you want to flip your pegboard over, because this will be your top. And try to position it as centered as you can. You can use your holes to help you figure out what centered is. And then drop your screws down in a location where there are not any pegs. So now we have our handle for our board. Now is the moment of truth. Is this going to function the way it's supposed to function? So let's give it a try. And look, it's beautiful and completely ready for me to put in my seedlings. So I'm completely happy with my seed flat marker. Despite the amount of time and effort that were required to make it right now, I feel like in the long run, it'll save me time. Because every time I do a flat like this, that means I would be poking in 64 different holes and trying to make them equidistant so that each plant has the same amount of space available. But now, I don't have to do that. I can just press my seed flat marker on it, and there we go.